last piece, and I'm kind of buried the lead here, talking about how things have been disruptive. Everything's been disrupted because of this new IT environment. The new IT environment is changing the game of how we look at things, specifically when we think about these three major bullets. So software as a service, cloud capabilities, and then lastly, the new considerations of cybersecurity. Before I dive into this, I keep talking about how things are changing, how things are different and disruptive. Back when I was a system owner for an end user for a life science company, it was great. I had a firewall. Anything critical, any business critical data, GMP data locked under the hood. It was protected by multiple layers. There were only a certain number of penetration points of how we were going to work. The minute you put things on the cloud, the minute you have things talking to each other, it opens up a whole new can of worms. There's advantages. Oh my gosh, are there advantages? But I cannot approach the validation of my environments in this new architecture and this new structure the way I did 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I have to do something different. And if I have to do something different, it means there's no standards yet. There isn't some silver bullet. People have done it. Like, we've worked and we've built systems. We've been able to do this work, but there's no over-the-top general strategy for how this stuff works. So let's start with SaaS. This is a presentation. This is from an ISPE article. I've actually had the pleasure of meeting one of the authors of this article. I really enjoyed. We were working on a project with a SaaS company and how we were going to go through the validation process of their platform. Really great conversation, because we have to understand if we're going to be moving some of these functions into the SaaS application provider, the digital provider, the software provider. Like, this is great. I don't have to worry about what version of SQL Server I'm running. I don't have to worry about the hardware that I have on-prem getting old and needing to be replaced. However, I need to make sure that when you partner with a SaaS company, you're expecting that company, these new companies on the splash screen that I showed before, to have the GMP validation knowledge that you have in order to make sure that these systems are ready to go. That's a partnering question. That's something that we have to work on together. I was at a conference about 5 years ago. It was another ISPE event, and it was a computer system validation discussion. And they were talking about how the industry needs to push the vendors to be more GMP compliant when it comes to the cloud. And it was shocking to me, since I've already talked about my experience of not being able to virtualize. I can't just push somebody into saying you have to do this. You need to partner with them so that their systems are capable for validation. It really is an important thing here. Once those systems are robust, once we go through this disruptive change, the level of effort and that you're going to have to put in from an end user perspective is going to be decreasing. So it's a huge opportunity here to take advantage of this, of what you're getting out of your digital systems and out of your software. Another piece I wanted to talk about, this is sort of an example of how you set up structure between on-premise devices, where your edge is, like how you're aggregating data together into an edge environment to then be able to push it to the cloud. Talking about compliance, these architectures, I see them all the time now. They didn't exist, like these boxes with S3, Redshift, QuickSight. They didn't exist 5 years. And if you go to say, I'm not making a push for AWS. I'm saying if you go to Microsoft Azure, if you go to Google Cloud, they have their own versions of these functions and how they work. There's a lot of really powerful things that are in here that IT organizations can use, that app builders can use to make this happen. What's interesting here is that, again, you have to think about where your GMP data lives, how you're validating systems. If you're thinking about this from a composable perspective, I can disconnect my GMP system. So I have in this particular example, we're using Ignition as a data aggregation layer. I can validate that. I can use it through Kepware. I can make something happen to get data together, and then create my user experience up on the cloud. How I look at the data, how I'm accessing the data, how do I make business decisions? If I go back to that example of how's my yield doing over time, I can think about yield. I can think about decisions on how I want to look into my organization to make change. I can gain those types of insights without necessarily touching the fundamental underlying GMP nature of the systems that are built. But understanding where you are and how it's built is important. Lastly, I do want to talk about security. Cybersecurity is one of those topics where I think, at least from where we're coming in from ZÆTHER, this, to be honest, is one of the first capabilities we want to make sure we have built and ready to talk through, because it's not a checkbox. It's not a one and done. There's multiple levels of security that you need to think about, whether that be how your network is handled, what your endpoints look like. Your strategy around each of these major security sections is not something you have to consider. I can't bury this under a firewall. I can't bury this under the DMZ. I need a better way of understanding how data is passed, how data is encrypted, how it's being used, how I can monitor those transactions for sort of bad players, and understand what the capabilities of my system are. Some of my favorite conversations are around how we connect to some lab-based instrumentation. For those of you that are working in cell therapy, trying to figure out how to commercialize, how to get GMP data and the best and data integrity out of your devices, it is very challenging to get data out of these devices. Right now, there are things that are changing. It's difficult to do that, and we get a question about, tell me about what your encryption platform is between this lab device and your SCADA system. It doesn't exist. It's not there. We need to be candid and clear about what's capable and what's not, so that we understand where our risks are, where our gaps are, how we handle them, how we isolate them. Everything's important here from a cybersecurity standpoint now that things are more open. And everybody is trying to catch up to this new world.